Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms, and of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. So, Phil Madeira, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And I need to tell you, it's this conversation I've wanted to have with you for 30 years. So, 1994, I saw you in the Ragamuffin band.
Wow.
With Rich Mullins in the Missouri Theater in Columbia, Missouri.
I remember that show.
Okay. I remember that show.
Actually, what I remember is after the show, but you go ahead.
Okay, I would love to hear about that. But it was you and Jimmy Abeg,
yeah,
Mark Robertson,
Rick Elias.
Rick Elias, yeah, the crew, and Rich, obviously. And I just remember I think you were sitting most of the show doing your thing, and you had the accordion.
I would be standing for accordion. I would be standing for electric guitar, and I'd be sitting for the organ.
Oh, the organ. Okay, yeah. I got that mixed up. But
that's all right.
That I always remember the accordion because I think it was Here in America is where that was that song that was. I think I'm not an expert, but I just that sound was really unique. And I, again, preparing for this conversation, that accordion is kind of what led you to Emmylou, right?
You are exactly right.
Right.
I was when I was getting ready to do that tour. You know, I had played on a couple of his records, Hammond organ, and I was actually not on the record that they were touring, Ragamuffin band, that thing. But I was invited to participate, and I was visiting my nephew, Dave Madeira, who now lives here up in Illinois, and he and I went to a music store because I still have like this big snare drum fetish. I started as a drummer, so I like to collect old snare drums, and so we went into a junk shop, music shop. I found this little accordion, which is the one I toured with Rich. I thought, this thing will come in handy. And interestingly enough, saying yes to that instrument, that lowly, oft, what would the word be, ridiculed instrument, Emmylou did not hire me for my guitar playing or for my piano, organ. She hired me for your accordion.
You spent what, $20 on it, right?
Spent $20, yeah, yeah. And then the other ones I've gotten have been given to me by Honer, which I appreciate.
Oh, so, that's awesome. Yeah. So that's cool. Like saying yes to that. That's a good message, right?
Yes.
And it seems like you're.
Yes.
That's good.
See what I did?
Yeah, that's really good.
Very fun. Very fun. And the humor is probably also what has kept me in Emmylou's.
No, but that's a good message. And you're saying a lot. You're saying yes to a lot of things these days, which is great, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you say no as well, but generally my mantra has been yes. I mean, unless it's a conflict of, if it's a message that I am hesitant about being a part of, or if it's just horrible music. But yeah, I like to say yes. Now, money does figure in, and I recently had to turn down a gig, which was exciting to me. I'm still with Emmy Lou, but we have slowed. Her schedule has slowed down quite a bit, and so I'm able to say yes to things that interest me. And I was really excited about this one thing, and I couldn't say yes to the money. The money was not. You have to value yourself. And I think a lot of times, certainly with management people, this is not a slam on that world. But if somebody knows they can get you for 25 cents instead of $3, why do you think they're going to offer? So
they're not going to leave with $3.
So you have to have you got to value yourself in this business. But saying yes generally is something I like to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's so much more to talk about with the book, God on the Rocks, that you wrote a few years ago, the Emmylou journey, all those things. I just want to tie off on the Rich Mullins stuff just real quick, because I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in the 80s, basically. I was born in the 70s, but grew up in the 80s. And so he would attend and play these, church camps, part of the Christian church, like all over the Midwest. And I always thought that he was part of the Christian music industry reluctantly. And because I think maybe at the time you just had to be on a label, and like that was the thing. He always seemed like he was a little bit on the fringe, or wanted to be on the fringe. And I guess my question to you is, without going into too much detail, because he died quite a number of years ago, if Rich was still around today, do you think he'd be part of the Christian music scene?
I'm hesitant to determine that, because I've seen so many people in that world, which I'm really, not a part of at all.
Right.
In fact, that tour was that may have been the last tour I did that was connected to Christian music. I have no axe to grind with that world, but I would say that given... got to be very careful. I have many people that I really am fond of, but I would say that if you watch a film called Bad Faith, now this may not be where you live. Yeah. I don't need to know, honestly, but if you watch a film called Bad Faith, you kind of see how the setup for where we exist right now, where you have so many nationalistic Christians, and a lot of that is at least in the undercurrent of Christian radio, as I understand it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I don't know who's in anymore. But you do have some people, like my friend Wayne Kirkpatrick, who also came from that world, who also was a friend of Rich, very good friend. He and I occasionally will shoot each other a screenshot of something ridiculous a long-gone Christian artist will have stated about politics, or usually about politics, or about gay people, or trans people. And, I don't think Rich would have survived that world. I think Rich would have actually been turned out by that world, and that's probably all I got to say about it.
And I think that's where I was going, because he gave a lot of his money away. At least that's what I've learned. He lived on a reservation, out in New Mexico, and he wasn't really part of Nashville, in that scene. So it feels like today, with all the access to be able to be your own artist and publish your own music, he would just be doing that with like the Kid Brothers of St. Frank, or the Ragamuffins, or whoever, right?
No idea.
Yeah. Well, that's because you guys are kind of, I don't know, cut from the same cloth in that respect. The way you talk about your dad, right? Who I think you've said is, the most important person in your life and the most admired, respected person in your life. Yeah. I think you said something like, he was a Baptist preacher, but he swam upstream. I
may have said something like that. Yeah. I don't know. But and my dad was the greatest. Now, Rich's dad, Rich had the opposite experience. Right. He had a dad who beat the hell out of him.
Right. So, really tough. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's important for me to just say that I am grateful for those roots, but we're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I love that you're interested in it, but I also and I get it, but there's so much stuff in that world that I'm glad. I love Rich's memory. I saw the very human side of him.
Right.
He would have lost a lot of fans if he had stuck around and they knew what he thought.
That's my point. Yeah. That's my point. All right, so we can move on. But yeah, that was the
Do
connection.
you like the way I'm guiding the interview? I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. No,
I'm a jerk.
But again, that 30 years ago, watching you guys play, like it was awesome. And it seemed like you guys had a great camaraderie and sort of thing going, and it was different than you would go and see Carmen, for example, or
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have done that.
You know what I'm saying, right? So okay, all right, cool. We can move on. So, but that's kind of the theme of the book, God on the Rocks, right? Of being of Christianity, of the faith, but not really in it, and like you're a person of faith, but you're always sort of challenging, questioning, things like
Absolutely.
that, right? Yeah.
I mean, briefly, the book God on the Rocks.
Right here.
What's the subtitle? Distilling Religion, Savoring Faith. The publisher will always make you do something like that, add a subtitle. And that, I have always been, and I think this is true of, it's true of anyone. If you're if you're the offspring of Hindu parents, that's what you're going to have when you start out with. And you may stay with that, you may question it, far be it from me to say. For me, I had these parents who lived exemplary lives, particularly my father, who was a Baptist minister, which in Rhode Island, I even have my Rhode Island hat on today. In Rhode Island, that is a lot different than being a Baptist minister in the South, right? My parents were pro-civil rights. They were anti-war people. They were taking the words of Jesus to heart, and that has tethered me. And I, if you pressed me, where do you go to church? Well, I've been Episcopalian for quite a long time, and the Episcopalians, my interpretation of what's going on there, I don't want to speak for them, but my interpretation is they see a spiritual life as a continuum. A Baptist will say, well, when did you ask Jesus into your heart? Well, I was 4 years old.
Right.
Great, done deal. Episcopalians are going to see this arc. So you come to church and they're not hammering you to accept Jesus because you're going to go to hell if you don't. They're just like embracing you, which is why so many gay people are in the Episcopal Church. They're just seeing that continuum. Where's this going? And today I believe, tomorrow I don't. The day after I might. Their concept of God is that he is bigger than your concept of, or maybe God's concept of God is bigger than anyone's.
Yeah. So
my idea that God's imagination is less than my imagination, because I imagine God to accept everyone.
Sure.
Right? The person saying, well, God's going to send you to hell if you don't live up to God's expectations of you. Well, I'm like, well, why would you think God's imagination is smaller than yours for love, right?
Right.
So that's that. But and so the book, I think, I've changed. The book is 10 years old, so I've changed a little bit since the book.
Okay.
Isn't that appropriate?
That's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think to your point, there's not a lot of nuance in the American religion of evangelicalism. Right? Like there's not a lot of room for ambiguity.
Oh.
No.
My daughter said to me one day, Dad, I think I'm an agnostic. And I said, well, who's not? Now I'm a person, I will say I believe in God. I will say I believe in Jesus, right? But I'm still an agnostic. And no matter what you say, no matter how certain you are, you can only go on what you think is happening, what you perceive is happening. And I hope what I believe is true. Yeah. And it doesn't threaten my faith to say anything like that. I'm kind of a rare breed in the world I'm in. I don't like talking about it a ton. I would find it very off-putting for the person in the room with me if this is all I talked about.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I'm able to embrace a lot of people where they are and I don't worry about hell for someone.
Yeah.
If me not worrying about hell for my daughters or something like that, if that's a problem,
Right.
well, I don't know. It's wrong religion.
Right. Yeah. Well, can I read you some quotes from the book?
Oh, of course.
And
you
then,
can,
because it's sprinkled with some amazing just perspective that I completely resonate with.
Sure.
And it'd be interesting to see if 10 years later, if you're like, well, that's bullshit.
I hate that guy.
But I don't think so. But like here's a couple that stuck out to me. So, on the church and sort of its impact to you being actually close to Jesus. This is incredible. Over the years, the search for God's presence led me in and out of a variety of traditions, from incense burners to barn burners, liturgists to improvisers. In contrast to conventional church wisdom, the more active you became in one group or another, the less connected to Christ I felt. That's pretty profound, because the idea of, I think, Christianity in again, the scripture is to be part of a community, and the fact that like the community that you had a lot of experience with sort of pulled you away from Christ. I think that's really interesting.
Oh yeah, it's like whenever it's almost like don't meet your favorite rock star, But I think, like when I will go to St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church this Sunday, where my nephew is the music guy, one of my favorite people, the son I never had, right? And I'll go because he needs a drummer. It's the only time I get to play drums is when Dave calls and says, "Hey, Uncle Phil, can you play drums in church on Sunday?" We're in the balcony, little teeny Ludwig drum kit. So I get to play drums. I get to see my beloved nephew. If I'm lucky, I get to see his wife and his kids. I will go forward. I'll get the little cup of wine. I'll say the creeds. I'll bow out during the sermon.
Okay.
I don't have the capacity to listen to a lecture.
Right.
No matter how great the heart of the priest may be, I don't have the capacity. I haven't for 30 years. I haven't been able to listen to a sermon except for a woman here in town named Becca Stevens, and hers is a homily.
Oh, nice.
5 minutes.
Yeah. You
can retain the
right.
point. 20 minutes. What the hell did you say? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, and there's a little bit of sense of community there. They're wonderful people. I certainly feel welcome there. My real church is my hiking buddies or Red Dirt Boys or Emmylou. The people that I'm in contact with a lot. My daughters, the love of my life, my beautiful girlfriend, my ex-wife.
Right.
I'm lucky enough to be able to say, that's church to me. And so if the Spirit is active in me, that means growth is happening. Me dispensing wisdom.
Yeah.
Well, it might happen once in a while, but sometimes it's just listening, absorbing. And so, my friendships they're amazing. And there is a context with a few people where it is maybe a lot of God talk. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, most of my friends from the Christian music scene that I'm still friends with, it's either doubt talk, which is fine.
Yeah.
Or it's, I'll say Wayne Kirkpatrick. Wayne and I, our quarterly conversation is, wow, did you see what so-and-so posted on Facebook? Now, if I mention these names,
Right.
their history, it's not like Amy Grant, who I adore,
Right.
who's solid gold.
Yeah, totally.
It's people that, never had a giant career, but think they're worthy of being heard about the most hateful garbage you've ever heard. And so that's sort of this twisted form of entertainment.
Sure.
Anyway, sorry.
So that quote reminded me, 20 years ago, we lived in Lexington, Kentucky, and we had 3 small kids. My best friend growing up was the senior minister at 15,000 church. It's like going to a football game, right? The state patrol is out there, and it was such a pain in the ass to get the kids ready, to get them dressed, to go navigate to the church, to park, to take the shuttle to the front door. And then you have these greeters. They're like, God bless, it's like, it's all, and it's like, you just know what the last 45 minutes were to get here, for me. And it's all, and it's like, it's almost like Christians are sort of their worst, like the obstacle to Christ is the people, and it,
that's
you know what I'm saying? That, and I think
case.
that's what that quote, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been there so many times where it's like, you don't feel, when you're going through that and you feel the surface level sort of greeting, and without any really acknowledgement of reality and sort of like the day-to-day stuff, everything's peaches and cream. You're just like, well, I don't feel connected here,
It's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what I said. It's the heaviest thing I've said today.
All right. So then, all right. Another quote: "The language of evangelicalism seems like a pair of loaded dice. I know exactly what the role, where the role will take me. I need something fresh." I love that, the loaded dice bit. And then you're like, I can't seem to find Jesus in that world that loudly proclaims him, which is kind of similar to what we.
That would be even truer today than when I wrote it before. I just, although I will say, actually, when you speak of the Christian church, you're talking about that denomination.
No,
right?
just the
okay.
American Christianity, right?
All right. Well,
which is it's a broad statement, but it's
okay.
It's the,
because there are certain denominations that I think are really trying.
Yeah.
And my impression is that the Christian church, Disciples of Christ, whatever, I've always kind of perceived them as maybe a little edgier. Episcopal church, it might be just a cup of lukewarm tomato soup or something, but I like that. If I've got to identify, I identify with a place that just says, well, come on in. Oh, you're gay. Well, great. Come on in. Versus the evangelical church that you go to where, Steve and Larry, this sweet couple, show up at church and everybody's super welcoming for a couple of weeks. And then at some point it's like, now, we love you guys, but we really need to talk about this. And, I'm just like, life is too short.
Yeah.
You're falling, you want to fall on a sword. Here's a sword to fall on. Love these people you don't understand. Allow this thing that you don't understand.
Yeah.
If God is so great, if God is so loving, leave this shit to God.
Yeah.
And so it maddens me,
Yeah.
And
Well, I know you work a lot with Jennifer Knapp. Or
Love Jen.
You contributed. And so I had the honor to have her on the.
I listened
on the show.
to it. It was good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and she had great words to say. And I think on that episode, I quoted an Instagram post that you did, which was basically like, she's great. I love her. But the fact that she, I forgot the words you used.
Oh,
but
the fact that she has actually maintained some sort of Christian identity is mind-blowing.
Despite all
with all these people in that world who can't stand her.
Yeah. It's
and
I think you've said too that Jesus has open arms. A lot of the followers don't.
Yeah, and I just like I said, I'd rather be. I like playing with Emmylou. I like playing at a jazz club. I like. To me, it's like my feeling when I play for anyone is not, okay, how do I tell this person about my faith? Right. My feeling is I hope this audience receives the goodwill. Like if you were to come and hear Red Dirts or just Brian and Chris and me, even at a little place like Brown's Diner or Spaghettini's in L.A. or the Met in Providence, wherever we've played, I don't care how many people are there. I want the goodwill of our band, that goodwill that just says, man, I'm so glad you're sitting here. Here's another song, and not me be the determiner of the message that you receive. Yeah. So that I don't, the less I say, the better. And so just policing that stuff is a nightmare. And that's the Christian world was like, good Lord, or not.
Another good one. All right. Well, so this is an election year. it just seems, and I know where you stand, and we're not going to get into the specifics of things. Just a general comment heading into the election. Is it you? Is it me? Or do you feel this too, that I know you're pretty vocal. It doesn't seem like people are as active. It just seems like it's a quieter election cycle from the standpoint of like being for or against, a particular candidate. Yeah. And I think, the vitriol from 8 years ago, 4 years ago, it's out there, but it just seems like artists, I don't know, it just seems like it's a quieter cycle. Do you agree with that, or are you seeing differently?
I have posted, I have 2 Facebook pages. Well, I actually have more than that. Like, I've got a Mercyland songwriter page for my workshop. And then I have Phil Madeira. And then I have Philip Madeira as my personal page. And the reason was because I thought, I want the people looking for Phil Madeira, a musician, to find him. And I really, the personal page, you want it to be about, hey, here's me and my kids in Stockholm,
Right.
And where I wish I was going to be on November 5th. But I have a lot of really great people who support my music, who probably don't support my politics, but the goodwill of a song, or even the journey, like my Hornet's Nest record, which is like, man, it's some vitriolic material, and probably my musically favorite thing. It's very funky and as jazzy as I can get without losing, the Patsy Cline fan out there. Those people are like supporting the hard places of my journey. They're celebrating the happy places. And so to me, you're going to see very little. It changed in the last 10 years. What I wrote in that book probably hasn't changed. There are certain things I might have voiced differently because the way we speak, the way we say things is changing so radically.
Yeah.
And
all right. So that's great. So we talked about your dad, being my dad just turned 88 this week, and similar feelings that you had for your father. So you've talked about him. In the book, you go into a lot of detail about your grandma, your grandmother, and the fact that a lot of challenges and struggles, and she doesn't sound like she'd be fun to have Sunday brunch with. But you did say, she taught me early on that you'll never be satisfied if you follow anyone else's call but your own. So
I'm grateful to her for that. And it was my father who really, just to maybe give you a little more explanation. My immigrant grandmother, born in Gothenburg, Sweden, she had they emigrated here when my mother was still in her womb. So it would have been 1920, right? So over 100 years ago. And she was real old school with her beliefs. So my grandmother actually believed that poem about, Sunday's child is full of grace. Right. I forget which I was, but I was full of, has far to go, whatever day has far to go. She thought that was science, right? She also thought that spiritually, if a child wasn't christened, baptized as a baby, that they were kind of damned, right? Well, both my siblings who came before me were christened. By the time I came along, my father was a Baptist minister. You're not going to baptize a baby, right?
Yeah.
She thought me playing drums was of the devil. I couldn't do a damn thing without her criticizing it. I told her to go to hell when I was 4 years old, not knowing that was even like an expression. I just knew it's the bad place. I hope you go there.
You belong there.
And it's colorful. The stories of my grandmother are colorful, as well as the stories about my mom, who was a character as well. So,
all right.
yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. My point in bringing that up is we all have relationships in life that just are grinding. They just grind us down. And the fact that you can actually, probably time has helped, but look back and say, you know what, she actually taught me that I just need to stick to my guns and be who I am.
Without her, right? Who knows what I'd be doing? I love my life. So without her constant non-acceptance, and my father was the one who first pointed it out. He just said, man, she's the reason you're doing what you're doing. So I am grateful to her. Another lesson I've learned is, growing up with someone like that and constantly defending yourself. Like, so I was like, shut up, And what the older I get, the more I realize how much power you have in not defending yourself. And so, you were asking me before we started the tape rolling, I was telling you I have a new book that I'm just about finished with. And that book talks about the idea of losing someone, of losing a relationship to cancer, to illness, and but before that person checks out, she turns her world against you, right? So that was my story. It was because I had broken up with someone who was dysfunctional, who also had cancer, and so the storyline was he broke up with me because I had cancer. Not true,
right?
But so I watched the whole world, half of our world just come unhinged, and it was kind of funny. It was a lot of all real peace, love, new agey, good feeling people just going apeshit, right?
Just going nuts.
And but it was super painful. It was super painful to have this out there when you know your intentions, your own heart. But I found such, and even in the book, I'm not all of a sudden, it's not entirely the point of the book to even tell the story. But the story of a person who says, I'm going to write songs. Like if you listen to my Hornet's Nest record, it's like, get the hell out of this guy's way. Musically and lyrically, because I took all the anger, all the hurt, went there with it, which I think is what artists do,
sure.
Right? But the beautiful thing was to never actually say an unkind word to someone who'd been terrible to me. The beauty was to let it be. People, because what I have found is, and I would think you might agree, if people believe the worst about you, it's kind of a choice they're making. And so that book, I think I'm excited about it. I had written it once, thrown it all away. I needed a few years of perspective. And then a couple of years ago, I started writing it again. And I'm nearly finished with it. And it's like anything else we do. You hope there's an audience for it, but like nowadays, I mean, the book God on the Rocks, I had a publisher.
Right.
I had an advance. I had belief. Well, things have changed.
Yeah, it's different, yeah.
Now anybody can, we can all put our book out, and it's kind of meaningless. Somebody like me saying, I'm putting my book out. It's like, well, so's my Uncle Larry. So
Chat GPT now.
Yeah.
Just AI can do it all. All right, so you mentioned your mom. She said, I think, again, you cited in the book that she said that you came out of her tummy playing drums, right?
Drumming. You
yeah.
were born drumming.
But you play a lot, and music has been literally every facet of your life, I guess. Do you have any regrets through the years on how this is all shaken out?
Well, man, it's that old thing of, if you can go back in time and shift something, you're going to shift everything else,
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, of course we have our regrets about, I mean, I hate to say it. It sounds really kind of crazy, but I'm so grateful for the life I have.
Yeah.
and I'm grateful. Look, for example, this, thing that inspired the book that I'm about to finish. Part of me wishes I'd never met this person,
right?
And part of me also experiencing this unbelievably reciprocal love that I'm now receiving all these years later, when I thought I'd never have this, even makes that prior relationship look even that much worse, right? But I think the hardship, the hardship of life either makes you or breaks you for the joys of life.
Right.
And so to me, it's all. So do I have regrets? Hey, I wish I hadn't said this. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I
Things
do
like,
have,
yeah.
I've got a few of those regrets. And you see these little regrets where, in a moment, you probably know a guy named Terry Taylor. Do you know that name?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Terry Taylor had a band called Daniel Amos, Christian band.
I know Daniel Amos.
And so anyway, I produced a solo record on him called Avocado Fault Line, which is,
okay.
I really enjoyed making that record. But he had a song on there, Things We Should Have Said, what I should have said. It's a pretty funny song. But, I do think regrets, it's like I am willing to say to an abusive friend, I love you.
Right.
I appreciate you. I will have goodwill toward you. But guess what? I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
And so, so I don't really have regrets.
Okay. Well, that's good. So that being said, what are you most curious about today?
The goldfish. What am I most curious about? I am going to be curious about the super simple things. So this sounds, I am involved in a lot of heady stuff. I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
I'm thinking all the time.
Yeah.
So what am I curious about? It's almost funny to me because, I'm curious about a book. I'm always reading. Right now I'm reading a mystery that I can't even remember the title of because it's kind of guilty pleasure type reading.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll read a biography of someone. Last year I read Leon Russell's biography. I read Remain in Light by Chris France from Talking Heads. I like those kinds of books. I like this podcaster named Dan McLennan, who's like this Bible scholar who is also Mormon.
Wow.
And so I have like a fixation on cults.
Wow.
But I don't think he's like a cult member. He's so brilliant when he talks about. So I'm curious about this guy because he's always like, Jesus wouldn't have been born on this day. He's one of these people.
Okay.
All the stuff you grew up believing, but he's never trying to tear you down.
Yeah.
Curiosity. I'm curious. Okay, I'm here in this head. I'm thinking in my head. I'm trying to move my fingers on guitar to get from here to there, but I can't do it quickly enough. So what's another way? So I'm constantly exploring the instrument I'm playing.
Even after all these years.
Oh heck! Yeah. I'm better now than I was when I'm amazed I even had a start. I'm amazed that I even got the opportunity. But I think I love the idea of being 72 years old, being the top of your game. I'm not thinking, gee, I wish I could write as well as I did 10 years ago.
Right.
And that may sound arrogant. I'm just very confident that, wow, I still love doing this. I have a prayer. If you have a prayer, mine is, look, I want to go as long. I want to be here as long as I can physically be here. But I want the mental health.
Yeah.
And the physical health to go with that. I don't want to stop. I want to be like a Picasso or somebody who just, they were creating till they were done. And curiosity for me is like, when I think of my girlfriend Jenny and I, it's like, okay, what are we going to look like in 5 years? I'm curious about that, but I'm also relaxed about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything I'm saying is making sense, but
No, it's good. I'm fascinated because of the career you've had, that you're still doing the things you're doing. I mean, I think
I'm
it's
doing
great.
more now than I've ever done.
Well, I just turned 50. Not to make you feel bad.
I don't feel bad at all, son.
Just 50 this year. First off, it was the best birthday I've ever had. Secondly, it's the best year I've ever had. And it's like I have a day job. It's a big day job. I have so many things going on, and it's just like I don't know. It's just the renewed sense of creativity, and
that is fantastic. I have always thought of myself, maybe I should have been where you were at 50. I've always thought of myself as a late bloomer, and so to me, it's my 70th birthday was probably my best.
That's
right?
awesome.
And I had a great party. My friends, the Hartleys, threw a bash for me, and I had Jenny there. I had Eleanor, my ex-wife, there. I had my 2 daughters there. I had most of my best friends. I had Buddy Miller there. I had a note from Emmy saying, I don't know. I'm at Johnny Cash's birthday. I don't know. I'm
Right.
kidding,
Yeah, right.
but he's dead.
Yeah.
But
I get the point.
so I feel like I could do a TED talk on how young you are when you're 72. I don't feel any older than you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I'm probably healthier right now.
I was going to say, you actually look healthier today than you did 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
Right.
I look at those pictures and I just see this kind of I see the face of a man and the shape of a man who is really enjoying his TV and a bowl full of cheese cubes or something.
Yeah. Right. No, seriously, I was going to tell you that because it's like you're in great shape.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. So, I'm curious about just the Emmy Lou Harris sort of world, and I don't want to talk about her because I'm sure she's
talk
incredible.
about her all you want.
But like, what does the public kind of not know about how she goes about business? I'm just because she's such, if you think about sort of the Mount Rushmore of music or country music.
Well, I would actually put it like this: instead of what does the public not know, if I may, what I would say is that the person that, like an Emmylou fan, imagines Emmylou to be, that's actually who she is.
Oh, that's great.
She's fantastic, and she and I were texting this morning about, I had fielded a request that I thought might be interesting to her. So we had a little back and forth, and I've always said she's just kind of like my cool older sister. And I honestly, she's trying to finish her book. She's been working on it a long time. I hope she does finish it. And I guess if there are, mysteries to be told, she'll tell them. But all I know of Emmy is great bandmate, great fun to travel with. We had a situation last week where when we travel by tour bus, we'll get on the bus the evening before the show. So we were going to play Raleigh, Durham on Wednesday. So we were going to get on the bus Tuesday night at about 10. And at about 6, I heard from our road manager, Maple Byrne, who's been with her forever. And he said, well, we don't have a driver. Bus company gave us a bus, but we don't have a driver. So we had to punt, So we flew, couldn't take all our gear, had to have backline, which means they provide a bunch of instruments. But the rest of so from Durham we had to drive in 2 vans to the rest of our gigs and back home. So it's not that cushy thing where you get on the bus, it's midnight, you take a gummy because you want to sleep, and you wake up, you wake up in Roanoke and you say, oh, I'm going to find where the coffee is. It wasn't like that. It wasn't as cush. But it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
We really enjoy each other. And I cannot tell you a better situation. I loved my years of touring with Buddy Miller, I will say. Touring with Buddy was fantastic. That band, we were smoking. So I've been lucky that way. But she's solid gold.
When you're on stage with her, do you pinch yourself? Is it one of those things where it's like, man, this is, or do you not even think about it? You just do your thing.
My journey has been so. I remember at some point thinking, I wonder if I'm ever going to get a call from Bob Dylan. Because that trajectory and the people in and out of my world. No, that being said, I don't think I ever will, and I also feel like, gosh, I don't think it'd be that much fun, right?
Yeah.
Emmy. When I was in college, so 1974 maybe, I was an art major, and the assignment I had in one class was to make a record cover. So I thought, I was already writing songs and stuff, so I thought, well, I'm going to make my record cover. And I didn't have recordings of my song, but I thought, I'll make my record cover, right? And so when it came time to list the credits, I thought, well, who would I want on my record? So you got to think it's 1974, right? So who are the big session players? Well, I wanted Leland Sklar on bass. Lee is that guy you see with a gigantic beard. He's still a major dude, right? I wanted Lee Sklar. I wanted the drummer most associated with him, named Russ Kunkel. They both were part of Jackson Browne Band and James Taylor. And I thought, well, this guy Michael O'Mardian, I'd want him on some additional keys because I thought he was great. He was on a Kenny Loggins and Messina record. I thought, I like this guy. And I thought, I'd want some pedal steel. So I'd want this guy named Al Perkins, who had played on the Rolling Stones, played on Randy Newman stuff, was in the Flying Burrito Brothers. I thought, these are the guys, right? And then I had met a fellow, Phil Kagi, in the Christian world, and I thought, I'd have to have him. I know him, And
he's not bad at guitar either.
And well, anyway, so what's interesting is, so cut to many, many years later, right? Now I've got daughters. My older daughter, Kate, my younger daughter, Maddie. Kate was turning 21, and she said, Dad, I've done nothing with my life. And I said, well, let me tell you a story. So I told her what I just told you, right? That I had this record cover that I had made. I said, you want to know something? Every one of those people that I mentioned, I have worked with.
Oh, man.
Fabulous, right? So now, and I don't think I tell that story in the book you were asking about, but I do tell the story of short selling my home and having to leave my house and just not being able to afford divorce and keeping it, blah, blah, blah. So when my daughters and I were cleaning out my basement, I found that record.
No way.
I found that album cover that I had made in 1974, and I had forgotten that on background vocals, I had listed Emmy Lou Harris.
Oh my gosh!
And there's been times when I'm used to telling that story, but it used to choke me up, and that's this side of me where I do think, and pardon me, anybody out there listening who just doesn't connect with a concept of a being that's out there that actually cares for you and maybe even has some design. I don't even know. But to me, that was like, sheesh, this just feels like a God thing to me, So, and that's why I much prefer the idea of a loving God
who
gives a damn about all his creatures. And, I'll never forget that line from Chariots of Fire when the protagonist is he's a religious guy dealing with some religious people, and they don't want him to run on Sunday. And he says, well, I feel God's pleasure when I run. Right. So that's one of those moments. But isn't that a remarkable?
Are you gonna get that framed? Did you have?
I never even thought about it.
You gotta frame that. Yeah.
But it's a good thing to have up here.
That's awesome. All right. Well, really appreciate your time. You mentioned you've been doing a lot of things. You had the Kickstarter project earlier this year, Funky Covers. You're working on, sounds like, a new book. Last year you came out with a Christmas album. It's almost time for Christmas, right? So tell us about that. Is there a particular song that you want to talk about on that?
Well, I will. First of all, anybody, including yourself, if they want to find the record called A Mercyland Christmas, and put it on whatever playlist they can. I just feel like this is like the Mercyland records. This is sort, if I have to narrow down what's the work of my life,
sure.
It's these things, right? It's putting goodwill out there.
Yeah.
And it's not a solo record. It's not about me. It is about gathering some friends together. So Mercyland Christmas has Jim Lauderdale, Buddy Miller, Cindy Morgan. It's just got like this cast of that. Yeah. And it's got some old Christian bands that are kind of no longer, like the Choir and Jars of Clay. Okay. Sixpence are on there, and but my favorite of all is Gabe Dixon is who I'm trying to think of. My girlfriend is on there. So the Christmas record is it's got some sacred themes because I think there are some beautiful sacred Christmas songs, but it's also got some fun stuff. Some romantic stuff. The song that Gabe and Cindy Morgan and I wrote, which is called "Keeping Christmas," is about a split. It's about a guy.
Oh wow.
I guess I'll light another cigarette. So actually, smoking is featured in two of the songs, and the one that I'll play for you guys is something that Sandra McCracken and I wrote, and I don't know how many people are aware of her.
She's awesome.
But she and I got together to write one day, and it's funny because she and I are, I would think theologically, not on exactly the same page. We're all growing, sure. Right? Which is not to imply that she needs to grow to be like me. But she comes from, I think she comes from the traditions that she's been involved with seem to have been more Calvinistic. Yeah. Traditions that have drawn me are essentially the Episcopal thing, which is sure. Creedal and et cetera. But I told her a story about the Christmas Eve after this person had passed away that had turned out to be quite a damaging person in my life, but it's still tragic and sad. That Christmas Eve was the one Christmas Eve where my daughters were like, I don't feel like going to midnight mass. So I go to midnight mass by myself, and I really don't, man, I'm like, why did I bother? It's late, and I get there early, and my nephew was in charge of the music, and he's like, Uncle Phil, don't leave. Because I said, man, I'm going to split. I love you. Merry Christmas. I'm going to go home. Uncle Phil, stick around. Long story short, I'm in the back row holding a candle while I was singing Silent Night at the end of this thing. And I do feel that whiskey warm sense of what I love about Christmas in the most mystical way, right?
Yep.
But then I'm still going to split. The service is over. I say, all right, Merry Christmas, Dave. You go, no, Uncle Phil, stick around. So I stick around. Everybody's gone. They've got this new priest, right? And Father Sammy. And what's interesting, most Episcopal priests, I mean, if that guy's been known as Sam or Sammy his whole life, you go to Episcopal churches, Father Samuel. This guy's like, no, Father Sammy.
Nice.
Sammy Wood. Anyway, So they invite me into this, into the kitchen of the church. They crack open a bottle of single malt, and I'm like, oh, this is great. Get a little bit high on Christmas Eve. I always have a very late smoke with my friend Ben Pearson, who took all those photos of Rich Mullins, by the way. So full circle, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have a shot of whiskey and Merry Christmas. Then everybody else kind of trickles away. And now it's just Dave and Father Sammy and me walking to our cars. And this is pre-COVID, so I wasn't smoking then. Pre-COVID, COVID kind of turned me into more of a smoker than I wanted to be. But this is before that. So Father Sammy pulls out a Camel, and I'm like, damn, I love this guy. I could actually start, maybe I'll listen to a sermon from this guy. And so I go, hey, man, do you mind if I bum a cig? He goes, no, not at all. I'm trying to quit, so one less. So and then my nephew, the sweetest guy in the world, he's like, oh, Sammy, can I have a cig? So we're all standing there, and I told this story to Sandra because it was such a sad year. It made me think of all these sad Christmases that so many people have, where you're just, And so she and I wrote a song called Midnight Mass, which to me is, I thought, well, it's a good one, but I think you'll like it.
Awesome. All right. Well, is that the one you're going to play?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. We'll look forward to that. I respect you so much. I'm not a musician. I don't sing. I can't play anything. I can't even keep a beat.
Yeah, but you're doing this, man.
This is my outlet. So I just, thank you for everything.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and like your songwriting, the session playing, the bands you've been part of, the book, your perspective on the world. Like, don't think for a second that it's in a vacuum. Oh,
so, I appreciate that.
And for what it's worth. So, really appreciate your time. It's an honor, and I can't wait to hear the song.
Oh well, I mean, it has been my pleasure. Life's too long or too short. I'm never sure what it ought to be. But listen, if I didn't want to be here, I wouldn't be here. Like, I'm not doing you some favor, and I recognize that you could very well be doing me a huge favor. But if nothing else, we've had a lovely opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
So thank you, and
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Do you have a cig, by the way?
Can I
bum one?
I actually left them at home.
Right.
I wish I did. Well, you know what? We probably walked downstairs and found one pretty easy.
Thanks, Phil. Really appreciate
Thank you. Yeah. All right. I'll play something for you called Midnight Mass that I mentioned earlier, written by myself and the great Sandra McCracken. After the sacrament, I find my release behind the bell tower. I smoke with the priest. The clock strikes 11. I slip through the door. My once-a-year habit, but who's keeping score? Here I am, empty-handed, without bringing you a Christmas gift. I don't demand understanding. I'm just trying to give my spirits a lift. Same old thing comes to pass every year at midnight mass. The prayers of the people are prayed once again. The slow resolution some wars you can't win. The glow of one candle fills up the whole room. I hear my voice cracking. We sing the last tune. Holy night. Empty-handed, without bringing you a Christmas gift. I don't demand understanding. I'm just trying to give my spirits a lift. Same old thing I always ask every year at midnight mass. Old regrets and pains against the echoed strains of angels we have heard on high. But I feel whiskey warm, I wanna be reborn just like a new star in the sky. Here I am, empty-handed, without bringing you a Christmas gift. I don't demand understanding. I'm just trying to bring my spirits a lift. Same old thing, always ask. Every year it comes to pass. The same old thing I always ask every year at midnight mass. Midnight mass. Angels we have heard on high.